Uh, Hello. Is there anyone who doesn't understand Estonian, who doesn't speak Estonian? Okay, then very well. Just for you to know, on the channel 2, there is interpretation into English. There is no interpretation into Russian, and we're going to speak Estonian. And so the interpreter I asked to actually consider that there is interpretation, and so that we would just speak properly, so that she could actually understand what is going on, and so that I could interpret it. I'm very thankful if you take that into consideration. Welcome to Narva, to the last day and the last morning discussion of the festival, and the topic is freedom in Narva. And here on the stage in front of you, we have 3 ladies, and my name is Toomas Kiho. I'm going to moderate this discussion. We have Lavly Perling, who is the chair of the party right-sided, and Kristina Kallas is the chair of the Estonia 200 chair, and Madli is the chair of the new party, and that's party theater. Okay, would you like to candidate on the municipal election? Well, please specify if also in Narva. Yes, our plan is actually to continue studying theater, and also in Narva as well. So that's clear, and actually that's just a little joke, and actually Madli Pesti has not established herself in politics, and well, I don't know if she ever candidated anywhere, but okay, her background is actually she's a recognized researcher of theater, and she's the author of a lot of research on the topics of theater. And in 2018, when Estonia celebrated its 100th anniversary of its freedom, so she was the person who wrote about the 100 years of Estonia theater. This is one of the most important books that actually talks about the history of Estonian theater, but it's been 7 years since that. But today we're going to talk about festival. We're going to talk about the Freedom Festival, and when we talked about the books of Madli Pesti, and now we have Kristina Kallas, who is the member of the panel of the Book of the Year, and Lavly Perling. What about your relationship with books and theater? So it's actually very good. I think everybody would say that, and I was sitting here and thinking about and relationship with books is actually a very fragile questions, because I moved, and you know what moving from one home, like house, means into an apartment. When you have actual physical books, when you move, well, you need to actually start looking at space, and then you have like a whole room. And I think it's just I had a whole room full of books, and I think this is my relationship with books. On the other hand, I'm a lawyer, and actually I believe that lawyers have to read feature literature, otherwise they start speaking weirdly. I am very I have a lot of respect towards theater, because it has offered me a lot of nice impressions, and I actually have a lot of respect towards theater in Moldova and Ukraine, where I spend a lot of my time. And so when we talk about, we actually talked about the theater, about situations in Ukraine and in Moldova. So next time we can talk. We can invite Lavly to talk about theaters in those countries. So actually, we will concentrate on the topic of theater. So, Kristina, what is your relationship with theater, and what is your relationship with theater in Narva? Well, my friendship with theater formed for a long time and actually riped during the last years. And it was I had my moments of love and hatred towards theater. I was brought up in the vicinity of Narva, where there was no theater. Before I was 18, in around of me there was no theater. Uh, well, there was just Rockwear Theater was the closest theater to my home place, but I never went there. And I remember my first impressions of theater when my history teacher in year form, when the Soviet Union just collapsed. I was in year 10, and I went to year 10 in school when it was already the Estonian Republic, so it was regainance of independence, and the history teacher in year 10 took us to Tartu, to Vanemuine Theatre, to watch a performance which was quite a documentary performance about history. So it was actually like a documentary movie. It was so boring, and because it was so slow, there were a lot of details, historical facts, and it was my first impression of the theater. And I think like what I took there with me, it was like the feeling of boredom, because the majority could not really, it was like 3 hours and majority of us could not sit still. It was not like a very smooth introduction to my relationship with theater. And there was a long break. I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you, but what about the other two of you? What was your first impression of the theater? Like, if a person goes to theater being in year 10 of school, so what about the other two of you? How did your relationship with theater start? Like, what about Madli? What about you? I was brought up in Tallinn. And before school, I grew in Tartu, in the county of Tartu in Ranno, and my first impressions of theater was in the reopened Ugala Theater. And Ugala Theater is in the middle of Estonia, and it's such a very beautiful small town where they have a very big state theater, and they opened in at the beginning of 1980s. They opened a big with a very beautiful architecture. There was a beautiful theater building, and from there I remember the performance. For maybe I was like 3-4 years old, and there was a big stage, and I think the performance was there was something like there was some kind of rodent with the blue trousers, and I also went to a ballet performance, and it was like a classical based on Estonian classics. It was something like folklore topics of werewolves, fairy tales, folklore fairy tales. So for me, at the beginning of the theater, it is important that I was involved. I was fascinated by both theater with words and with dance. So for me, it was something that fascinated me. And when I was already school pupil, I was in puppet theater. I went there with my grandmother. In my family, there were no people involved with theater, but my grandparents, who lived in Tallinn. And my grandmother used to be with Ita Ever in one of the theater studios. Yeah. And I think, that is so exciting and lovely. So it's so interesting that we have a theater person. I would actually could have mistaken facts, and I could say like about the werewolf. In Vanemuine, it was under the name of Tina, but I have my story is a contrast to Kristina's lugu. Story. In my family, the principle was that there are no boring books and no boring performance. And so then my first memory, I was taken from the very early childhood two different performances, and I have to admit that for me there was a time when I was raising my little son by myself, and then I was like, oh no, I cannot go to the theater, and then probably I will shock people, really serious people who work in theater, that I had a choice whether I can go to theater and I will teach my child to go to the behave in theater being 3-4 years old, or I cannot go to theater. And then actually when we went to some kind of summer performances, my child learned to sleep in theater being 3-4 years old, but my principal was like, I could take my child with me, but my child could not spoil anybody's other experience. So but my child slept during performance, so after the first performance, so he started sleeping, and he did not actually interfered with anybody. So actually this is not only your first impression of the theater, but you also took the next generation. But I will use but actually when I was in school, then theaters would arrive at school. So and then we had puppet theaters visiting the schools, and maybe they were like, they are 6 times, and puppet theaters, and they showed performances to our school students, and probably what about our to our audience? What you saw yesterday, you saw the notebook this from the same Vanamus theater that Kristina found the performance was boring. You saw notebook performance. Well, I wasn't anyhow traumatized because I became a historian, because I went to study history in university at bachelor's and master's. I have degrees in history. It just that at the beginning it wasn't like a smooth introduction. You also wanted to ask me about Narva, and actually my experience is that the first time I went to theater being year 10, it's just because I had a teacher from a history teacher. It's also actually this situation is not an exception here in Narva. I think if you are going to talk to young people at Vipol and students here in year 10 in school, they tell you that they went to theater again being only in upper secondary school. But again, not many things have changed. Narva and the county of Ida-Virumaa was like a cultural desert where you didn't have many cultural experience, where you could not be inside the cultural experience and environment. Not many things have changed. There is not much culture that is brought here, but again, people to whom it's brought here, the number of people is quite small. Well, actually, it is a problem that we have to say that Martin and his team, they have brought here this Freedom Festival here to Narva, and it's already the 3rd time, it's already the 5th year, and actually such things as that Martin and his team have done here, this is actually it's just a completely different things that something was here like 40 years ago during Soviet time. And now Madli, yesterday when I was looking at the scientific webpage about the researchers, you have a very interesting article about Philippines, and there was an article about theater in Narva. Yes, I would like to comment what Kristina thought about very well, that we would like to, she mentioned that I would like to emphasize it for our foreign guests, that the situation was very different. Me, who I was brought up in Tallinn, and I was from the west of Estonia, that this contact with this exposure to culture, it was very different. So you actually brought it out very well, that for me this to hear that Ida-Virumaa was cultural desert, but to feel it for other Estonians, this is actually very sad for other people living in Estonia, that it actually was something like that. And it's extremely important for our foreign guests thinking of you. I would like to emphasize that in 2018, when Baba Lava was established here in the city, which is the third largest city in Estonia, there was no big professional theater. There were some small children's theater, and there were visiting theaters from Russia, and maybe some there was like commercial visiting theater, but there was the Estonian cultural space. Something like that would be a possibility to see Estonian artistic representation. It hasn't been here for decades, and actually foreign guests find it very strange to hear, and they do not always believe that, but that's the way it was in 2018 when Baba Lava was established. We can also say that in Estonian theater for 15 years has been developing documentary theater that in Western Europe, which has been important and popular direction, but in Estonia it hasn't always been this way. And when Toomas asked well, actually, if we talk about the topic is theater in Narva, I have made a lot of presentation in different parts of the world on the topic, because our border region and our cultural situation here, it's a broad it has been an interesting topic abroad, and it's still interesting. I have participated in a lot of conference, and I'm planning to go again. But instead of me just having having a monologue here, because maybe we will go back to the original topic, and I would point out just maybe talk about documentary performances a bit later. And for the beginning, maybe I will say, but maybe if there is just like 11 documentary performances have been created only in relation to Narva, or in connection maybe on the topic of Narva, or reflecting on the about Narva, and that's from the year 2019, just 6 years, and all these have been Baba Lava productions. There have been different theaters doing that, and different forms of theater. And here at the festival, we saw a documentary performance about Balti's factory, but these forms were different. Yes. Some people here have been here. We will talk about, maybe some of us have seen 10 of those performances, but we cannot, Lavly, what means theater in Narva? You don't have to answer. For me, like, so that we treat everybody here in the same way. For me, Narva and theater, to a certain extent, starts from that Narva doesn't have a theater, and it was 2003 when I lived in Ida-Viru County in Kohtla-Järve. But living in Kohtla-Järve, I always felt like, well, you have to just you go in a different city, on a different state. You need to understand when the environment in which you are, what is the culture, what are the people, not only the theater culture, but what is the culture in its most general sense around you. And I would also like to say a lot of thank you to Baba Lava and the whole of the team, and told to Mart this 2003 when I came to do my job. I came to reform in Kohtla-Järve, and where I found myself. On the one hand, it was very interesting, beautiful, but it also gloomy. And this is also maybe the reply to your question. I remember all those weekends when I when I took my child, and I thought like where we'll go, and so the only place where I could take get a part of that culture was Narva Castle, and actually those some of those puppet theaters performances which I went to see here, but I also remember feeling this lack of culture because it was so sad when I wanted to go to a real theater, but there were concerts that were done in Alexander Church that wasn't actually completed, renovation of which wasn't completed. And although this, for me, this is the feeling, but there was no theater. Well, actually, one thing why. Well, we have Narva, that is the third largest city in Estonia, but the majority of the population is Russians who speak Russian. And when there is theater that is done in children's theater, so the main language was this Russian, and so but then Vabalava was established, and so all those performances, they were like imported from somewhere. And I think that for Narva, Vabalava is one of the is this its establishment is like, you know, it's like establishment is like of the core, and that's the core of the Estonian culture here in the city. If Narva, as the third largest city, has achieved such, maybe it seems like thanks to Vabalava, this third largest city in Estonia, we can talk about like just in a normal city in Estonia. Well, just what I remembered and what I'm thinking, like when Kuku Radio announced the weather forecast, it says about Pärnu, it says about Tartu, it says about Tallinn, but it never talks about Narva. Kuku Radio could actually talked about Tallinn, Tartu, Pärnu, and Narva. So these are those elementary little changes that could occur in the Estonian society, in the Estonian way of thinking. So this could be our task, and I think that could also be one of the tasks of cultural projects of Vabalava, of integration projects to a certain extent, because to bring Estonia here. But actually, I'm coming here that actually our actual topic is not is the freedom in Narva. So what does it mean? How do you evaluate what does it mean Narva freedom or freedom in Narva? Please.
ma tulen korra ikkagi selle kultuuri.
I would still go back to this culture in Narva. You said that Vabalava or theater in Narva is bringing Estonian culture here, but I'm the person who lived here and was born here and had this Estonian culture who was been here, and this in the 20th century there were such big interruptions of culture here. The first happened in 1944 when all those everything what was related to Narva history, and the second was 1991 when for the people living in Narva was a big cultural interruption for people living in Narva. So those were very significant moments. Then the community who was before 1944 and the community that was here in 1991, these people, they had to rethink the whole of their life, who they are, where they belong, with whom they are, and so that like those interruptions, they were like that. This is like in 1994. This is the story that is not told in the cultural environment of Estonia. How these people felt, how they started to rebuild what they are, and this process keeps going. And I think it was in 1991, and I think the process that is continuing, and the role of Vabalava is to start talking the story to the rest of Estonia. It's like those people who lived in Estonia in 1991, they just like as if they had to enter Estonia in 1991, as if they never belonged to Estonia. So their integration into Estonia, it was difficult. I saw that on the example of my family. My mother had to do that. My mother's roots are in Russia, but she has lived here. It was 1991, 81. She said that, well, I had to live until I was 40 to get to know that Second World War started in 1939. For her, it was such a big change in her identity to know that Second World War didn't start in 1941. So she had a long background story, so she had to learn that. So maybe the problem here is that in 1991, well, it wasn't maybe like an interruption. It didn't interrupt, but the problem is still there. And those people who lived in some kind of Soviet reality before 1991, they would actually prefer to continue living in the same Soviet reality. I'm not talking on behalf of everybody, but there are those people. And actually at this festival, when we had this performance of internal climate, and you were not there, it was the performance about Baltiets factory, and so how people arrived at Baltiets and from the whole of the European, from the whole of the Soviet Union, and what lives they had, and how their mentality developed, and how it froze. And I think what this is where the roots of these problems are. So coming back to this topic, freedom in Narva. Lavly, please. Madli, I think it's a good place to bring two examples that so this internal climate as this new performance, and when we had earlier Julia Aug performance, this was documentary performance, Narva, the city that we lost. It was a few years ago. There was the so the both performances are united by the topic of memory, and to be more precise, this is the topic, the focus topic. Julia Aug, who is the famous actress, director, she directed 4 performances on the topic, directly on the topic of Narva. These are stories of the families, her roots, on her family as well. Her roots are in Narva, and there was a performance that talked about the story of Narva, bombing of Narva in the March of 1944, and she found documents, and so during the performance she provides evidence that Narva was bombed by the Soviet troops. And on the other hand, the breach with the new performance, internal climate, all foreign guests saw this performance. There was what was important is that this internal climate is based on interviews, and these are real stories. And there is such an idea that when characters talk about pioneers, the building of pioneers house, and there's like, oh, what was there before that? It was pioneers house, but what was before that, before war? No, it was still pioneers house, but actually that was a town hall, which is very beautiful. It has been renovated, and now city government works there. So this is a very important place, like in the political memory. Well, I just had so many thoughts. So the first, like freedom and Narva. actually, I have never lived in Narva like every day from morning to evening. It's actually not really. Maybe it's not polite, but but I will talk about Kohtla-Järve. I remember my life from like the first week of my life in Kohtla-Järve, and it was like what is the freedom. I really agree with the statement that freedom starts from critical thinking, from like free person. It's like free economics, that I have future. It's my free country. I don't like speaking too much about the past, but I like about freedom. I like speaking about future. And if we talk about, maybe I'm more harsh, but we need to take care of our own freedom here. Of course, it's this. We talk about culture and cultural environment. It's difficult here and in Ida-Viru County, but before. Unless we do that every day, unless we create it every day, it won't happen. And we need to establish information environment. I remember my first day. I arrived from Tallinn. I was a boss. I went to a coffee shop, and there were two people speaking Russian. And actually, the reform that I needed to conduct was. That to bring Estonian as the language, as the working language. So it was language, and people were talking in their mother tongue, and so again, after some time, and people with Estonian as their mother language, they were talking in Russian. And I thought, okay, if we want to talk in court in Estonian, maybe we need to start with coffee shops and talking in Estonian coffee shops. And what I want to say is that, yes, it was difficult in 1991. It was difficult. There was not much food diversity, and there were a lot of difficult moments. And so what? And where did we get? So when on Friday I went to cafe, and two Estonian people talk Russian, and then that was when I said, that's it. Here in our building, in our core building, we speak Estonian. And so maybe a lot of books can be written on the topic, but I think like this identity and bringing Estonian identity to Ida-Viru County, when I went and when I became when I returned to Tallinn, and when I started this Ida-Viru project. And I could not bring culture as a lawyer, but what I could bring was that I went to different universities, and I brought here first of all, first time by bus, I brought here young people. At the beginning, yeah, there was like half full bus of young people, and we brought here young Estonian people. And they because police offered them internship, and we offered them internship supervisors, and we brought those people here. And one day maybe they would start their own families and establish their lives here. And where I want to reach is that I had this project so that when I changed jobs, and now we will need to start established commuting, because it became so popular. Because when I returned to Ida-Viru and I saw young families who have established their lives, so this is so much about freedom. Well, this is not really about freedom, but this is about Estonian language, and about bringing Estonian language to Kohtla-Järve. So what about, what do you think is freedom and Estonian language? Are they connected? So what do you mean like freedom means Estonian? Yes. So Kristina, what do you think? No, for me, they don't. It doesn't mean so. It has already sounded that a person in Narva or in Ida-Viruma doesn't want freedom or doesn't fight for freedom, or like they live in a different informational environment. Well, actually, this is like personal feeling. Is that a person wants to have some rights or has to decide about things. It's like personal feelings and personal beliefs. So those people have especially Russian language people. So they are those collapse of their beliefs in 1991. The whole of the world of their beliefs, it all collapsed. For example, my mother feels this very well. So you think like for many people it hasn't collapsed. No, for everybody, like people, Toomas, what happens, like how do you now collect those broken pieces? How do you build yourself as a person again? So for everybody it was a personal way to come. So where do people go? Some people have collected themselves very quickly. They built themselves like Estonian people and started living this new life and build this new identity. But still, like this large process of searching for oneself, of what is happening with Russian speakers living in Estonia. This story has not been told in Estonia because there are like hundreds of stories. Well, Madli just reminded us about a couple of performances, but maybe we already start talking about the stories. We already have the beginning, or we have made some little steps, like baby steps in this direction. Now, I want to ask, like, okay, freedom and democracy. We often put them in the same sentence.
see demokraatia, et
And Lavly also said that we have to bring, she actually talked about language and freedom. So she said we need to bring this freedom here. But actually, who has the right? And who has the right then to freely and in a and based on democracy, build their life in Narva. So it's that municipality, people of citizens of foreign countries cannot participate in municipal elections now. So what about people who now they live here in Narva, but they do not have the right to decide of what is going on the future of their community? So then, for example, they are citizens of foreign countries. So what are the what are the borders? So is that so does it mean that now Narva is less free? So in 1991, so it was 1993, there was story that people in Narva wanted to have their own referendum and had a Narva area, so Narva zone. So maybe Lavly, you can have the answer. I would like to say that there is a different freedom, and yes, because now our language is such a strong part of our identity. I'm sorry. The question is, so what about identity of Narva people? Because language, Estonian language is not, but we keep saying that Narva is a part of Estonia. Narva is our city. Yes, it's slightly different, but it's still like our city. And I will reply to this with one story. Well, again, in Ukraine and in Moldova, in 1991, I always reply, what happened? What happened with us and what happened with us? Why are you here and we're here? And I have been thinking about it. I have been there, and what we have is that 3+1. First of all, three basic principles that we took differently were this economic reforms, that people became the owners of their homes, of their. Then we had the rights. the third one was we changed the thinking and generations. Well, actually, when I use generation, I don't even think the age, but I don't think the way of thinking. Quite quickly, we chose the society that was based on freedom. They still had those people who were in charge, who were based on the Soviet way of thinking, and the one more is that this like on the soft power based. In Ukraine, I saw a lot of on the screens those 24th February 20, 2022, and in 1991. And the big change is that I really like this Narva story, not because we talk about only this Russian speaking people who came here, but actually this story talked about those Russian people whose city it was. They were thinking about Estonia, and the city has been taken away from them. And if I'm talking about the topic of freedom, actually, the identity and language, they make the freedom. You cannot bring the freedom, but of course, freedom is something that people feel, but it is based, whether we like it or not, on the information environment. So and slave is the opposite of free person, and occupation is the opposite of free country, and socialism is the opposite of free economy. And I really liked what you as a moderator reminded us. Well, actually, we need to think about, we need to give people in Narva this environment and this show them the road, but not to bring it. How do we do all that in addition to these three aspects that we did right in 1991, this free economy and fair attitude? And there was one principle which is especially good in relation to Narva, is that the citizenship. Those who received citizenship were the ones whose relatives lived here, whose parents and grandparents lived here before the occupation. And in other countries, a lot of problems come from this because in Narva, there are about over 80% of people who are Russians.
juba pool on Eesti kodanikke siin Narva linnas.
And around half of them are Estonian citizens, and we talk about half of the population being Estonian citizen, as they can participate in elections, municipal elections. And my question is to you, and if this municipality decides on something, makes some decisions, can there be resistance from between these principles and between the things that this municipality decides? And for example, when the ministry had to change the names of streets because we did not trust Narva democracy, where there is an issue with this freedom. And Madli, Kristina, what do you think about this? What are the bottlenecks of this political freedom? Well, because this freedom was brought here to Narva, it was brought here politically from top to bottom, and again, there is no room, there is no space for this culture and language. I started my speaking that it used to be cultural desert. It still is. We are here in a small oasis in this desert. Also, this transition to Estonian medium education that we started 33 years after regaining of independence. So it's not only the language that we're bringing to school, we're also bringing culture, again, bringing political freedom always. Always bring the reaction of resistance. and this is the resistance that has been going on between the rest of Estonia and Narva for 30 years. And then again, if we're talking about this case of changing the streets names, and if we come back to this person who lives here, this freedom can change, can happen if the person's mentality and identity, if they want freedom, but if the person is confused and the person doesn't understand where they belong and where their people are, so their community, and if the person has been confused for a long time, then this freedom for them do not exist in such form. So a person can fight for freedom when they can do what they are. And so in case of Narva people, this confusion has been going on for a long time, and they have been looking for this identity. Some people have been looking for that longer, and some people have been holding to the identity that they have had because it has been familiar to them. And there is still a number of people who are still in the process of integration. They are still looking how they can become Estonian, but it's not going to work like this. Okay, like let's become Estonians. So this is a project. Let's start doing that. It's very difficult. It's a long project. The whole of this changing of identity. So in the case of Estonians, Russians living in Estonian. So in Latvians and Ukrainians, for Ukrainians, this self-searching is quite easier because this conflict is not built into their identity. But for Russian, this is quite a difficult process for Russians living in Estonia, is to how to this conflict with Russia is built into their identity, how to reevaluate what Russia is for you. I had interviews with the main organizers of Narva referendum of 1993, and I actually had interview with the previous director of Baltics, who did not allow his people to participate in this referendum. So what happened here in this environment in this community in July of 1993 is a much more diverse story than we are used to talking about, like people from Narva wanted, we didn't want, and so on. Sometimes someday we actually have to tell this story, how this hot July of 1993, what actually happened to people in Narva this summer. Okay, so let's give the people who do documentary theater a new great topic of 1993, this referendum of 1993, because as we already mentioned, this interruption of 1991, this we have already made some baby steps to analyze it and to think about it. But I had what I wanted to tell here is that I wanted to bring here a couple of cultural moments. Well, Madli saw a very important Ukrainian performance, but with that we saw here at the festival. But Madli also did a couple of projects who I am with people living in Narva. Of course, the number of people who think about their identity through this project, it's quite small, but still these baby steps have been made, and this performance actually they have been made on the topic that you have mentioned. Although I did not know Madli at the time, but there was a question about the question what has changed in my way of thinking. Then I did not think. Well, I did think for a moment, and but I could also say only one book. Then I think it was Madli Caruso, When the Rooms Are Full, because this is how when already being an adult, I just started thinking about large processes in the society when everything depends on the way you see it. And I agree that these laws have to be, these stories have to be told, and those documentary performances have to be made. And when I hear about these stories being collected, it's very powerful. But on the other hand, I would like to say that Narva is just a part of Estonia. We cannot endlessly deal with Narva as a victim. It's just a beautiful city with its promenade, and we have to tell these stories. But as the question was about democracy, well, democracy has to be established by politicians in the state. People give politicians the mandate, but now Narva is very often forgotten. And here in this regard, it's very difficult for each political party to get here, but they have to come here, not just because everything is different here in Tara. Because when I came in 2003, I was very irritated when everybody told me like, oh, here everything is different. Here things are different. This is the part of the culture. Of course, I completely agree. Narva is a part of Estonia. Narva is an Estonian city. The question is what to do with the Russians who are here. If there are like 30% of they are citizens of Russia. 15,000 people in Russia, in Narva, are going to support Russia if the war was to start. So, like if the war starts, I can only support my city. Well, please do not relate identity to citizenship, because they are not related. Yes, they are. Lovely. Thank you for supporting me. Actually, that was I was trying to provoke you. Well, having done integration research for so many years, I know that identity and the passport that you have, actually only Estonian citizens could participate in state elections. And what about the percentage? We just and actually everybody who supported. So maybe we have our citizenship law is too soft. Okay, maybe we have a political movement that is oriented to Russia and supports Russia. But what I want to say that about this passport, maybe I need to, this the passport is not does not show the person's identity, but that's just the choice that the person has to do. But maybe the person is even sorry about this choice, but the person cannot change this choice, and they cannot. It's actually a much bigger process to change this choice. Whether the person has an alien, like a so-called gray passport, a Russian passport, but it doesn't have to be anything to do with loyalty. Or being born in Estonia, we're not going to talk about loyalty. Of course, I think that citizenship and the loyalty agreement with the state. If we talk about the Bronze Knight, it's not different. It's still in the best way. It's always on. It's working on both levels. It doesn't make Narva some kind of like a disabled city, but Narva still has a great potential, and it's a very powerful city. but I started thinking, started listening to a different thought, and then my thought disappeared on the topic of loyalty. Actually, we actually talked too much on general philosophy. I actually talked to very many people in Narva, and here are people who have the story that they in their childhood when became the citizen, when they had the Russian citizenship, and we have told him from the beginning that you can remove their right from the at the municipal elections, but you can actually tell them how they can refuse Russian citizenship. But I now know quite a lot of young people who are very disappointed because they cannot refuse Russian citizenship. They cannot do that. These are these stories I can tell. I have worked in public sector. I cannot believe that the state writes to you like this. And now I see those stories. When I see those I see these emails when the state writes that if you don't go to Russian embassy, we're going to remove your citizenship. So if you know anyone in Narva, so we are going to do something to show them the road to Estonian society. Well, actually, you cannot have double citizenship, and that's it. And there is no political agreement. I can talk here about my personal opinion, but then there's political agreement is not that we cannot have a double citizenship, because if the person has received Russian citizenship for some objective reasons. Merli Karuso.
ei hakka bensiini
I'm not going to participate in your disagreement. I have two questions. The first is rhetoric, and did you still talk in the pace that the interpreter asked you? And the second question is that I'm expecting the answer to. I do not remember. Maybe it's due to my age. Was it this spring, or was it last autumn when we had a discussion on the topic of Narva? When when I participated, there was a gentleman who said in Narva College we do not teach history. I would like somebody to answer to this question. Was he correct that we do not teach history any longer? I think yes. Our Minister of Education, Narva College,
kolledžis õpetatakse
there is no curriculum. This is a higher education institution, but there is no curriculum that is related to history. I don't know what is happening there. When I was director of Narva College, then the first year students are in the real, no matter what their relationship, what their curriculum was, then all first year students had a course in Estonian culture and Estonian history. And so that was compulsory. I don't know if they still have this course, but when I was the director of Narva College of the University of Tartu, but in case we think that we suggest or we believe that history is told to our students in Narva secondary school. So we cannot suggest that Narva College can have a different role in teaching history, because we have two state upper secondary schools in Narva. So yeah, I think it's the answer is when Kristina was director of Narva College of the University of Tartu, history was taught. You are the Minister of Education and Research. I thought with this question to actually ask rector of the University of Tartu. We know that how then we know how this history of Estonia has been taught here in Narva before the reform of transition to Estonian education, Estonian medium education, because in the last project that I did here, who I am here in Narva, I had 2 students from this college, and they are learning to become teachers of Estonian, and one of these people, I actually was naive. I thought that he would write in Estonia as all others, but he allowed ChatGPT to translate what he wrote into Estonian, and afterwards it turned out that he was already a second-year student. He was to become Estonian language teacher. He did not understand what other people were talking, although the text that
päevas.
we had, it sounded 10 times a day. And the difference was that he was talking about how the questions was Narva tongue, and I did not bring that. I don't bring provocative questions, and it just if somebody else brought it up. But the question was how he, with his son, when his son became already a teenager, how he would understand the meaning of historical events, how he brought his son to Narva town and talked about the history. So how he would bring the son and talked about our history. And during the performance, he talked about how his grandfather was the person who put that tank over there, and they had the photo when there was the parade with his grandfather. And the child who was like a year 9 or year 10 from the same project was telling him, and my father was actually thrown out of here. So then the question is here, how is this Estonian history told? That was a rhetorical question. Is then in Narva college, students are taught to become teachers of Estonian as a second language, but we don't have a curriculum. It's just a universal curriculum. It's the same as in Tartu and in Tallinn, but we don't like IT, and they are the same curriculum, but we don't have history as a special course. But again, then large changes has become is that we have state upper secondary school. We don't have upper secondary municipal school, but we have 2 state upper secondary schools that are managed by the state, and they're controlled by the state, and the state is responsible for the quality. And so we hope that Narva education is changing. And to ask me why these 2 upper secondary schools were built only when they were, it's not. I'm not the right person to ask. I was very frustrated when I was the director of Narva College. It's one of the reasons why I'm in politics, because when I was the director of the college, when I saw students who received their school education, and when they were at their enrollment interviews at university, and when I asked them in Estonian, why would you like to become a teacher, and they asked me to talk to them in Russian, and those children who were born in Estonia like in 2000, and they have lived, which was like 19 years after Estonia regained its independence, and I was so frustrated, and I did not have the patience to wait for political debate around the language, and that was the reason in our education, and that was the reason why I went to politics. And then now I would like to ask, what about the party of Estonia 200? So, okay, let's do that. Now we are going to finish our discussion and freedom of Estonia. So how that can be implemented after municipal elections. But we had a person who wanted to ask a question.
My name is Abdul Karim. I am from Oman. Well, I was pleased to hear about Narva and the culture of the Narva. And what was draw my attention that the word freedom were repeated a lot in this morning. My question is, I was all the time I was speculating, what does freedom mean? Do we all understanding freedom same thing?
Yeah.
And now, do freedom has limit, borders, roof, or it is open?
Let's ask.
And I would like to listen to our guests, what their understanding of freedom.
Yes,
And
thank you for
what
the
it
question.
is, I mean, regarding this expression, what's tomorrow if some performances come to this festival where we found them against our understanding of freedom, against our idea. So can we accept them as a freedom? Thank you very much.
ühesõnaga,
So what do you think? How do you define freedom? Freedom. One time I was at a training, you know, this training when you talk to, and you need to talk about your main values. It was like 15 years ago. And my first value was freedom. And colleagues were joking, like, what is that? I said, no, my main value is freedom. And are you joking? You have 3 children and you're married. What freedom are you talking about? And then I said, but for me, freedom is the possibility to choose. That's it. Okay, so freedom is the possibility to choose. I would like just to finish that it was it was personal and maybe it was selfish, but I dare to say that it's a possibility to choose on all the different levels, whether we're talking about culture, or freedom of speech, or we're talking about the country, and the possibility to choose your guarantees of freedom, your future. If there is no choice, there is no freedom. Yes, freedom starts from the person themselves, and whether the person has rights and possibilities to make decisions about themselves and about their life, and to do that together with the people they love, with their family, and to make their decisions with the community. Or the person doesn't have those rights and possibilities, but each freedom has limits, has borders, and this freedom, this border arises when So the border of one person's freedom is the other person's freedom. So for people living in Narva, the border is where they have the rights and of people of Estonian, of their community. So that's also like these two things they meet, and this is the place where they have to compromise, so where they agree and where one and the other, so where they place their freedoms. I know Toomas wants that politicians would talk about municipal elections, but I don't know. Personal freedom, what about but if we talk about freedom in Narva, so it's actually also talk about society, but it starts with personal freedom and then it goes to society. So Madli, what do you think about
festivalil või
so, and then we talk about performances. My first thought to when I thought about the question, it was about the same direction. So we're talking about the same things. So my thought was, so it was choice and diversity when I think about cultural aspect. And then for me, it's important. Diversity is important, and based on that, I find that this festival has offered this diversity and chose it. And this is my question. This is my answer. I'm Rein Lang, and I used to be Estonian politician, and I'm a big friend of theater, and I'm very thankful to Martin for the question for my participation in that. And I actually caught myself thinking that during these conversations we thought about humanity, about cultural diversity, and about everything else, but the festival title is freedom, which is a bit ironic that our question from Oman is asking this question. Actually, maybe we need to talk about freedom and different understanding. So what is freedom? So that Freedom Festival actually takes place in Narva, which is the border between two civilizations. I'm not sure that in Narva school and in college they know what are these two different civilizations and where is the border of civilizations. And I think the author with the name, this author's name doesn't tell anything to the majority of Narva intellectuals. And actually, this is the job that Estonian intellectuals left undone, and we just do some kind of second-rate jobs. So what Vaba Lava was established in Narva, this is also my fault to a certain extent. I think it's a very important thing because this is the Western civilization and its establishment on some territory what was for some time given to a different civilization. But this is not the only place where this civilization is kept alive. We have also a museum that is unprecedented under unprecedented pressure of the Russian world has been for the last 3 years. But luckily, Estonian Republic has been able to fight this attention from the Russian side. So please let's not forget that Vaba Lava and museum are the parts of this Western civilization that is surrounded by the so-called Russian world. And probably a lot of people do not understand yet how serious this on the world scale. So we're going to see this. Sometimes we look at this so-called Russian world and sometimes we make jokes over it. So before the world in Ukraine, it was in a place in the Rugadiv Cultural House where an artist from Russia would have a concert and make jokes. But actually, this is the thing that is just now going to accumulate power. And so there are much bigger plans happening. So what is going to is now turned out in Ukraine, and now that is has become with the last week very clear how different information is manipulated, and how not only a person working in Baltics, but even the best educated people in American politics can be manipulated with information. And this is where small Estonian people need to be able to fight this manipulation, and Vaba Lava is like a small lab where we think about all these different tricks, how we stay strong, and with which methods. And theater is a very strong idea. But we also see that this Russian world is trying to actually enter this world, and all these discussions that are trying to lead us to fights with each other. And so we're talking about genocide in Gaza. Yes, of course, genocide. I agree with that. But who is behind that? Is it Hamas, or the powers behind Hamas, or Israel? So it's actually we're talking about money that is being poured into psychological influence on people. So if we're talking about a classic Western democracy, we're not going to spend money on psychological influence on people. We are actually going to establish psychological protection of people that Sweden has had for quite a long time. And we do not do any manipulation, whether it will lead to the fact that this Western civilization will move from Narva River to Kunda River. So it will be just a small step behind. I agree with a lot of things that you are saying, but maybe the idea is maybe we could actually have your monologue home mix. So you could just take your friends and you can just talk about that. Yeah, please. Where do we have the mic?
no
I have a question. Because I'm interested in your observation about what the people of Narva think now, because you brought up the issue of the summer of '93, the referendum, and I would like to know what you see with the people who live here after 30 years, if they are happy that this region didn't become a second Transnistria or a second Abkhazia, or if the frustrations, what you, Kristina, mentioned, are so big that people think again that might be possible, and that there is a danger, and that maybe some populist politician could use this wave to ride on. So, yeah, what are your observations? What's the people here think?
I will just say, because one answer to this question could be what we saw in this performance. One answer to these questions is that we saw in this internal climate performance, but we don't have time for this. Did you want to say something? Okay, but then in this case, we actually need to. You wanted to say something, did you? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Nina Maria Häggblom. I'm from Svenska Teatern in Helsinki. We're the Swedish language national stage in Finland, and I would just be, and I fully understand that our linguistic makeup in our country is very different compared to Estonia, but I would be interested in hearing just quickly your opinion on bilingualness in Estonian bilingual culture. Do you think that there is room for a bilingual Estonian identity at this moment? And if no, do you see that one could be possible in the future?
Kristina.
ja
Yes, this bilingual identity has been here. I am bilingual person. I speak. I have two first languages. It has always been like that. There is always room for that in Narva College. Were here when I came there as a director. There were mostly Russian home language students, because Russian college taught in Estonian. In 2016, Estonian language became the only language of instruction, and so Estonians also started coming to study in college. And then in 2019, we had foreign students. A lot of them came from Russia. But they studied in Estonian. The first language, they just were immersed into Estonian language studies. And I remember the situation when suddenly we had next to the Russian community, then there were Estonian speaking community in Russian home language. How could you say, you cannot say them, okay, you are Russian speakers, and then it's and you couldn't say you're Estonians, and you couldn't say there are Russians from Russia, and then there are Russians from Russian home language. And then again, you couldn't say you're Estonians, and so they had Estonians from Estonia, Estonians. So then we asked them, how do we address you? And they said, you are not Estonians, you're not Russians, so how do you want to be addressed? And they said, when I can say Estonians, when I can say Russians, who are you? And they said, please let's name us Russian-speaking Estonians. This is, I think, the most vivid example of dual language identity. This is also the reply to you. We have Estonians who identify themselves as, if not a Russian language Estonians, then Russian language Estonian dwellers. So these are people who are bilingual or who are Russian speakers living in Estonia. But again, nobody is going to dispute that Estonian language is the most important language knowledge for them. But at home, they speak Russian. Okay, we need to conclude. Just a couple of minutes left. So I would like to say what is going to happen to Narva after these municipal elections. So when only half of Narva population who can participate in elections, what will happen? Of course, Narva has to participate. Of course, what we talked about, that we have to fight the Russian Imperium. We have to build here Estonian state, and Narva people have to be shown the road to Estonian way of thinking, Estonian language. But again, I have to think that I work in Moldova and I work in Ukraine, but if we look at a different type of research, this young person in Narva is loyal to Estonia. But we don't have to be blindfolded, and I liked Rein Langi monologue because I also say that the biggest question is the Russian influence, why I put together the language and information space. But we're talking about that people need to feel freedom, but the people can elect freely when they have a possibility. So we are going to get there where positively Narva is our city. And we just need to support and build this freedom. And I have a different opinion about this bilingual. Of course, in your homes, you can speak whatever language you want, French, German, but in public space, we need to try speak Estonian as much as we can. Okay, so we have always looked at people, and we have always then looked at people. So we cooperate here with the present Narva mayor, and we today we feel that we do not have a separate. I don't know what's going to happen after elections. So luckily, in democracy, no politician can say what's going to happen after. So people in Narva are going to elect, and they have the right to elect, and of course, the people with Russian citizenship cannot elect anymore. It's going to have its impact, both negative and positives. Of course, those people who don't have so certain parties are going. Politicians are going to have specific number of votes. Then we're going to wish you success. Thank you very much. And Madli can also say something. We have 4 minutes left. If you want something, you can wish great festival. And then Madli, you have everything has been said. And please, Kristina, do you want to add anything? I want to say that I'm very sorry that I could only see only one performance, and next year, well, actually, it's going to be not next year, but over a year. Yeah, so you were too early to book your August. But Lavly, what about you? I will also come, whether next year or a year after that. But good luck, be strong, so that you could continue with the festival. And please. So this is our work, but this is good. I have some good news, and during 2 evenings, the flag of Ukraine was stolen, but no worries. We have another one. Maybe because Narva flag is very similar, maybe because it was Narva flag, but actually it's positive news because it's a very valued Ukraine flag is very valued here. So thank you. Here maybe our guests could got to know a little bit about Narva, and so we also have we always have some performance about Narva, and we keep talking about Narva at our festival, and you provided us with great ideas. And at 12 we have a bus that will take us to Kranholm. We're going to have a Kranholm excursion, and at 3 o'clock we're going to meet here, and here upstairs we have the first performance. So and then at 2 o'clock we also have the script reading. So then it's in Russian. It's going to be script reading. So yes, we're going to start with our last day with excursion, and then we already had our discussion. So there will be excursion and performances. Thank you.